So, if you look up there, you see the picture of an iceberg. And what this represents is your mind. Your mind is about 1/10 to 1/15 conscious. Like right now, you're thinking, you're listening, you're thinking about what you're going to do, what time you're going to get home, and all that kind of stuff. And then your unconscious mind is beating your heart, it's making you breathe. You don't have to think about it. Okay? It's just working. So right now, for example, you're not aware of what you feel in your right foot, but as soon as I say right foot, you're aware of it, right? So it went from the unconscious up into consciousness. And what we find, just like when we were looking at the seagulls and the jackhammers, that the unconscious, the image of what you're holding, but it's unconscious, you're not even aware you're thinking that or you're aware you're imagining that, it's what's controlling you. And so it's the bigger engine. If we had the upper part representing 15 horses and a lower part representing 85 horses, and they were pulling against each other, which one's going to win? The 85 horses are going to drag the 15. That's why it's so critical that you begin to work on managing your unconscious through affirmations, through belief work, through meditation, through imagery work, through repetition, through the reading you do, the books you read, the television shows you watch. Those are all affecting your unconscious mind. So we'll delve into that just a little bit here. So just to circle back on some of what we do, we want to eliminate the word I can't from our vocabulary, right? And I want to tell you a quick story. You've all met Tony Robbins, probably on TV and books, infomercials and so forth. And he really illustrates this better than anyone I know. He was in New York, and this is a story we put in our first Chicken Soup for the Soul book. He asked his staff to go get a van, and they were going to take the van, and they were going to go up to Harlem. They were going to buy 35 baskets of food, and they were going to give it to the homeless people. So he goes to do some radio and TV interviews. He comes back. He says to his staff, "Where's the van?" And they said, "We couldn't get one." Wait, my staff, Tony Robbins, what I teach, unlimited power. You couldn't find a van in New York City, 12 million people? Tony, we called Avis, we called Hertz, we called National, we called Budget, we called Rent-A-Wreck, we called Ugly Duckling, we called them all. Nobody had a van. How's that possible? Tony, it's Thanksgiving weekend. Everyone rented the vans to go up to the Poconos, take their family, camping, whatever. No van. He says, "Come here, guys." Takes them over to the edge of the window in the hotel room there and up on the 5th floor. They look down. He says, "What do you see on the streets down there?" They were into avoiding. They went trucks, buses, cars, motorcycles, motorbikes, bicycle messengers, whatever. Eventually they had to say vans. So he says, "Let's go get one." He says, "Tony, people own those vans. They're not going to give us one. How are we possibly going to get one?" He says, "We're going to get one." So how do you do it? You ask. So they go down. First van that comes by, Tony jumps out. Now, I don't know how tall Tony is, but he's big, like 8 feet, it seems to me. If you've seen the movie Shallow Hal. And the first van that comes by, Tony goes like this. And he said, "I learned something about New Yorkers that day." He said, "They don't stop, they speed up." He said, that strategy was not going to work. So he said, we had to get a better one. So they went down to where the traffic light was, and then they knew they would have to stop there, and they would knock on the window. Window would go down, they'd say, "Hi, my name's Tony Robbins. You may have seen me on TV. We need to get a van so we can buy some food, take it to the homeless in Harlem." And as soon as people would hear Harlem, they get a little uncomfortable. "I don't know if it's safe up there. I don't want my van to go up there." And they'd say, "No, I don't think I'm going to do it." This went on for half an hour. No van. Finally, his staff said, "Tony, let's give it up, man. Let's go have dinner. It's late at night." You know, and he said, no, we're going to do this. It's a numbers game. So, half hour more goes by. Finally, Tony knocks on a window. Window goes down. Driver says, "Jump in." Jumps in. As he's getting in, the driver reaches over to put a hat on his head so Tony won't sit on it. And it says Salvation Army. It was Captain John Rondon, the captain of the Salvation Army of all of New York City. He said, "I'll take you a place better than Harlem. It's called the South Bronx. It's even worse there. People are living in burned out buildings or squatters." So they went, they bought the food, they took it there, and he said 35 lives were uplifted. They gave him about food for a week. And he said, more than that, I taught my staff, there's always a van in New York City. There's always a van in New York City. The metaphor being there's always what you want if you what? Now, if you ask, and several other principles. So let's look at what those are. So one of the principles that's in there from Law of Attraction is Tony had what? Clear intention. He knew what he wanted. He was very specific. 35. It's going to be baskets of food. We're going to take them up to Harlem, give them to the homeless. And it turned out to be the South Bronx. It was still the homeless. That was fine. Number two, he had a positive expectation. He fully expected he was going to get the result. Fully expected it. Never a doubt in his mind. When I interviewed Pete Rose, the baseball player, I said, when you go up to bat, I said, how many times do you expect to get a hit? He said, every single time. Why would I go up to bat if I didn't? I said, but you only bat about 300. That's 3 out of 10, 1 out of 3. He said, doesn't matter. I don't belong up there if I don't expect to get a hit. You need to expect to get whatever it is you want. If you don't, you have doubt. Now, as soon as doubt comes in, how many of you have seen these earphones? They have these Bose noise reduction earphones. Now other people, Panasonic, are coming out with them. How do they work? They have a wave coming in called the sound that you don't want to hear, like the airplane noise or the kid crying next to you or whatever. And then it takes that sound and creates a reverse wave. So the wave's going like this, the other wave's going like that. The two waves collapse each other, you get a flat line. Does that make sense? That's how it works, noise reduction. Now, when you have a doubt, here's the thing. I want the car, but I can't afford it. I'd like to go to that school, but I probably won't get in. I'd like to ask her out, but she'll probably say no. As soon as you do that, it's like you take and you create the opposite wave and you collapse it down. You don't want to be doing that. Okay? So that's why the positive expectation is so clear. Let's say you call up Domino's Pizza. And you say, I'd like to order a pepperoni pizza with peppers and onions and cheese. And they go, great. Take your name, your address, you're waiting. You call them up 5 minutes later. Hi, this is Jack again. Just want to make sure you're working on my pizza. Yeah, Mr. Canfield, we have it. Oh, just wanted to check. Wasn't sure. Bye. 5 minutes later. Hi, it's Canfield again. How's my... You're sure you're going to deliver it? You're not kidding me now. This is for real. I don't want to be waiting for this and not get it, you know. Now, if you did that for about 6 times in a row, what would finally happen? They'd have your name on a caller ID, and they would go, don't take Canfield's order. He is a weirdo, right? See? So you fully expect the pizza to come. And so you just release it, and it comes. The same thing here. You release it to the universe, to God, to source, to whatever you want to call it, and it comes. But as soon as you get doubt, it's like you're canceling the order. You know, you're saying, oh, never mind. So you don't want to do that. So positive expectation. Number 2, take action. Tony took action. He didn't wait around. He said, let's go do it. And he took massive action. He took consistent, persistent action. He wasn't going to give up until what? He got the result. How many people give up too soon? Don't do that. Number 4 is the law of attraction came into play. Who did he attract? Probably the most perfect person in all of New York. Now, there could have been other perfect people, you know, ministers and priests who work with the homeless and so forth. But this was a perfect person that he attracted. Now, it took 30 minutes longer than his staff thought it should, but who could have been better? Knew where to go, knew how to get there. Perfect. So again, 4 basic principles: clear intention, positive expectation, take action, persevere, and law of attraction kicks in. All right. Now here's a little piece of research that shows how powerful your thoughts are. Some of you may have seen this work. It's Dr. Masaru Emoto. He's a Japanese businessman and a scientist, and he teaches at a university. And he wrote a book called The Hidden Messages in Water. Wrote a second book called The Secret Life of Water. And what he discovered through some experiments he did is that your thoughts affect the molecular structure of water. Your thoughts have an impact. Water has memory, it turns out. Water can remember stuff in its molecular form. How does that work? He takes a bottle of water like you have sitting in your... Can I have that? I'll just put a little visual in here. So he takes a bottle of water like this bottle here. He holds it up in front of the class, and he puts it down. He says, okay, I want you all to send loving energy to this water. Then he said, takes another bottle of water, and they put this one away, and they get it out of the room. And they say, now I want you to send negative energy to the water, okay? And then they take the water, they put it in a petri dish, and they freeze it to 20 degrees below zero. Once it's frozen, they bring it out, they put it under a microscope, and then as the water starts to melt, it forms a crystal. And we'll see that different kinds of energy create different kinds of results. Let's look. When you send love and gratitude to the water, you get something really beautiful like this. Looks like a classic snowflake formation. When you send something like, you fool, I hate you, like we did to Chris here, look at the difference between that and that. That's radical, okay? And they've done hundreds and hundreds of these experiments. Here's a really cool thing they did. They said they took 10,000 Japanese, remember we talked about the force field being a square of the number of people? So now we're up into the millions. And what they did was they had these 10,000 people gather together and all send love and gratitude to the water on the planet on a certain day in July a couple years ago. They took water samples the day before, and they somehow secreted those so they wouldn't be affected by the experiment. I don't know if they put them in lead boxes or whatever they did. And then what they did is the next day, they sent love and gratitude to all the water in the rivers of the world. And then they took water from those same rivers the day after. Now this is water from a lake over in Japan called Lake Biwa, and that's the day before, that's the day after. Okay? Here's the St. Croix River in Wisconsin, Minnesota. What do we get? Before and after. Halfway around the world. Here's the Mississippi River. The day before, the day after. So that love and gratitude had an impact on that water. Now, what else is important? Your body is made up of what? 85% water. As you get older, you dehydrate a little bit. It's one of the reasons you age. Okay? Babies have the most, old people when they die have the least. So hydrating, see a lot of you are going, oh, I'm going to drink some now. So hydrating is really important. So what happens is we know that when we love ourselves, when we raise our vibration, when we forgive ourselves, when we accept ourselves, when we're in a state of joy, we're actually affecting the water molecules in our body. Okay? All right. Now, every thought you think, as we said, is sending out a vibration. Stay with that. Keep your thinking conscious. Keep it deliberate. What you watch on TV, the books you read, think more clearly about where you're spending your time. Who are you hanging out with? What kind of thoughts? Even the church you go to. Is it a church that makes you feel uplifted? Is it a church that makes you feel guilty? Is it a church that has a really positive feeling, or is there a heavy feeling? Honor that inside yourself. Now, Mark and I one day, we said we want to sell 1 million books in one day. Mark Victor Hansen, my co-author on Chicken. And no one had ever done it up until that time. J.K. Rowling with Harry Potter's done it since. Done several times. They sell 1 million books pre-sold before the thing even comes out on Amazon and places like that. So what happens? We set this intention. We started visualizing it. We had actually made some mock newspaper headlines that said, Chicken Soup authors break world record, sell 1 million books in one day. We were real excited about it. We put it around the office. Everyone started thinking about it. We've held that vision for 30 days. We talked about the 30-day principle. Now, about a month later, I'm in Chicago with Mark. We're at the Booksellers Association convention. And my publisher said, do you want to ride back? We're at the booth. Do you want to ride back in the limo? I said, no, I don't. I want to finish my conversation with this guy, John Kramer, I was talking to. And he said, okay. So now that meant I was going to have to take the bus back. Cabs were impossible. So, you know, they have these buses that drop you off at all the hotels when you go to a convention. So I get on the bus. I sit down. Lady next to me says, you're Jack Canfield. I went, cool. She knows who I am. And then she said, you're wearing a name tag. So much for my ego. So then she says, you're the Chicken Soup guy, right? And I said, yeah. She said, what are you and Mark up to? I said, we just set a goal to sell 1 million books in one day. And as fast as I said that, she said, I can help you do that. I said, get out, is that real? She said, absolutely. I said, how come? She said, I'm the buyer for the W.H. Smith bookstores. Now, if you've ever been to more than one airport, you've seen a W.H. bookstore, a W. Smith bookstore somewhere. They have hundreds of them all over the country. And she said, I bet what we could do, take all your co-authors, because most of our book have a second, third author on them. There's an expert in the area we're writing about, aging, cancer, whatever. And she said, we'll start you all in the airports on the East Coast, about 6 in the morning, when they'll let rush hour, again, you know, to business travel. And we'll have you for 2 hours, and then we'll put you on a plane, and we'll fly you over to like Chicago and St. Louis, and we'll keep flying you across the country, and by the end of the night, you'll be in like San Francisco and whatever, and you can sign books there. And we'll get an airline partner, we'll get hotels so you guys can all stay in the same place, it won't cost you anything. I said, why would you do that for us? And this is when she called me dummy. She said, dummy? She said, you don't think it would make me look good to my boss if we sold 1 million books in our bookstores in one day? I went, got it. Now, a lot of people would say, ooh, that was a nice coincidence. What I'm saying is that was law of attraction at work at its best. And that happens all the time. And, you know, I was talking with Michael, who set this thing up, this talk, and he was saying, you know, when you have 100 in a week, it's not a coincidence anymore. You know, there's just like one thing after another, and that's because you're in the flow. You know, you're in the groove, you're in the flow. And when you say you're in the flow, what is it? Energy's flowing, and you're just stepping into it. One of the teachers always talks about you're either going downstream or you're paddling upstream against the current. Which is easier? Downstream. So if it feels like you're going upstream, you may well be. So if it feels easy, you're probably in the right. Now, how easy is it that? You know, here's somebody who sets the whole thing up. We just go and fly across the country for a day and sell 1 million books. That's pretty easy. Not that hard. But you got to be doing the work we talked about to bring it into being. All right.